Teddy Roosevelt once said, "No man is worth his salt who is not ready at all times to risk his well-being, to risk his body, to risk his life in a great cause." As Christians, we're supposed to be worth our salt, which means we need to live up to the calling of Christ because we do have a great cause. Jesus requires Christians to be salt, so we must be useful and influential. Jesus requires Christians to be salt. If you would turn with me to Matthew 5, verse 13. It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." Now at that time, salt was very valuable. Salt had such a great value, in fact, that it was used to pay Roman soldiers. That's where we get the term, "he's worth his salt." Jesus said this for a reason. God created us. Jesus died for us and bought us with his own blood. Obviously, we are very special and valuable to him. Salt was valuable because of its many uses. More than just for flavor, salt was used for preservation of meat, catalyst for burning fuel, medicine, and cleansing. Salt was also used for fertilizer because of its mineral content. That's why Jesus says, "Salt is good, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use either for the soil or for the manure content. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear." Luke 14, verses 34 and 35. Because of the lack of containment in filters, salt back at that time would get contaminated and lose its saltiness. So it would have to be replenished. In all its uses, it directly influences what it touches. You'll know when salt is present. You'll know when French fries are salted or not. You'll know if you're drinking spring water or salt water. Salt is like light. If you're in a room, you know immediately if there's light present or not. You either see or you don't see. In this way, Jesus tells us we are useful and have an influence. Jesus requires Christians to be salt. So Christians must be useful. De-icer is one way we use salt today. It's used to break down ice on roads or paths and to make sure that those paths have traction. In 2 Timothy 2:21 it says, "Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart as holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work." Just as de-icer serves a purpose of clearing paths in winter, we are needed to serve others in our congregation or community in order to be useful for Christ. This week, look for an opportunity to serve someone. Check on your friends. Help with your mom with the chores. Even tonight, encourage somebody because that's something everyone needs. It will mean a lot to him or her. Jesus requires Christians to be salt, so Christians must be useful. And Christians must be influential. In Numbers 13 and 14, I'm just paraphrasing here, Moses sent the leaders of the Israelites to explore Canaan. They returned and told the people that the land was great. It was awesome. But the people there were too powerful, so it was impossible, it seemed like, to them. And this is God's own people. With the exception of Joshua and Caleb, who were confident and faithful in God, everyone was terrified and panicked. Because of the people's lack of faith, they were punished for making everyone over 20 years old unpermitted to go into the promised land. Besides Joshua and Caleb, the men sent from Moses with a bad report had a bad attitude and influence on the people. So they ended up having bad consequences for themselves and the people around them. So we've got to make sure we are the good influence in order to bring people up instead of driving them down. Jesus is an example of a good influence. He attracted many crowds by performing miracles and reaching out to sinners. Jesus always had the right attitude by being hopeful for everyone. His actions had a good consequence. In fact, he's the reason why we have hope today. In 1 Timothy 4:12 it says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and purity." We must be a good example. Try to have a good attitude the first couple of weeks of school. I know it's coming up too quick. Be very positive to your classmates and teachers. Your attitude will affect your behavior, which will cause others around you to act similarly. Jesus requires Christians to be salt, so Christians must be useful, and Christians must be influential. Salt needs to be replenished. If I put more ice on top, I would have to put more salt in order to break that ice down. It's not a one-time thing. We are challenged to constantly serve and influence others. Salt is effective in what it's used for. So let's live in a way that will change our community, our local congregation, or a friend in need because of our presence. Thank you.